Welcome to episode 7 of Bass Sound Design. The intent of this video is to get a better understanding of how Serum works and how to synthesize sounds. Today's course overview will be creating our own wavetables, understanding how to shape that sound, and then adding flavor, aka the effects page. All right, amigos, let's get into some bass sound design. The first part of this entire lesson is all on wavetables, and the reason that we're starting with wavetables is because if you start with a good wavetable, you're more than likely going to synthesize a good sound. And if you start with a bad wavetable, it'll be a lot harder. So what's the difference between good and bad? Well, this is a good one. When I drag this wavetable position, it moves smoothly. And when all the way down here, it's got like low content. As you can see, it's all down here, but then all the way up, we get high content. So like this has a lot of variation within the frequency range and it moves smoothly. Good wavetable, objectively. Bad wavetable. See how I'm scrolling? It's just jumping between frames. It's not smooth. And no matter where I turn it, it's just still all the same frequency. I would call this a bad wavetable. We can make this a good one later, but I'm going to get into that, well, later. So yeah, that's good and bad wavetables. Over time, you will build a collection of wavetables. Like these are folders full of wavetables that I've collected over the years. Is something that you'll do once you kind of get into a good community of people that will share them with you or you buy them and stuff like that. So, and we can also create our own, which I'm going to get into right after this. And that is, there are stock wavetables within Serum. It's the analog, digital, spectral, and the vowel. These are all really good wavetables, and a lot of DJs, like mainstream DJs, like I know Jaqui uses the analog, I think the B-Sod Square. I know he uses this a lot. Like he was using this in his Avant masterclass that I took and was doing some really cool stuff with it. So don't knock on the Serum wavetables. They're there for a reason. And if you want to get really good at synthesis, I would encourage you like just do basic shapes and understand what a sine wave feels like, and a sawtooth, a triangle, and a square. Don't worry about these last three. We don't really use them. You can screw with them if you want, but the square, triangle, saw, and sine are the fundamental basic shapes of all sounds. And if you understand the characteristics of these basic shapes and how they work within different filters and different effects, you'll start to pick up audible cues on different wavetables. Like let's say, hypothetically, I'm playing with this, and I'm like, at some point, I'm like, oh, it sounds like a triangle wave in here. And I know a triangle wave sounds really good with, I don't know, this filter probably doesn't. But like, if it does, I know to head in that direction because I built a familiarity with basic shapes. That's why I discussed that. So let's make our own wavetables, and we'll just pick one of these. I searched growl in my browser. So say I really like that and I want to make it a wavetable, I just click and drag it in here. But you're going to drop it on the FFT 2048 section. And now when I cycle through, it's a wavetable. But as you can see, it's jumping and we want to make it cleaner. So we can do that by clicking this pencil icon, going to morph, and you can do crossfade or spectral. I actually don't know what the difference is between these. I think spectral would make it more watery, and crossfade just kind of blends them all together. I normally do crossfade, and now when I move it, perfectly smooth. We can take it a step further by going to process, remove fundamental HPF if you want to get rid of the sub note. Remember in our sub synthesis video, bin 1 is all the sub. So if we remove that, there's less low end. And if we go to process again and normalize each grain separately, normalize each gained separately, I think just kind of just blends all the frames properly. I really don't know the terminology. I learned this from Squanto. He's got a couple of really good YouTube tutorial videos, by the way, from his schoolhouse. I don't know if he's still making content, but yeah, definitely check out Squanto. That man's been making music since like we were all children, and it's amazing. So, and he's a genius. He's literally a wizard, but I digress. So this is wavetables. Remember, basic shapes is where you want to go with to learn like the fundamentals of wavetables. And remember, you can import a sample into here and make it pretty by clicking the pencil icon, going to morph, crossfade, normalize each separately. And we turn this bad wavetable into a slightly better one. So those are wavetables for you. All right, now we're going to go ahead and shape a sound and make our first little dubstep preset. Preface, every time you synthesize a sound, it is not guaranteed to sound good. More than likely, it doesn't. And the chances of this sounding like crap when we're done, very, very high. So anyways, let's go ahead and get in. And the reason that is because there's so many possibilities to push a sound that you're pretty much just shooting in the dark blindfolded on one foot, and you just never know what you're going to get once you start modulating a wavetable, unless you're like been doing this for 10, 20 years, which I haven't. But anyways, pick a wavetable. Be doing that, whether you freaking picked one from here or you created one. And we're going to go over the concept of push and pull LFOs. So there's LFOs that push things and LFOs that pull things. I'm going to take the level all the way down for oscillator A, drag LFO1 on. I'll just draw a shape like this. You can double click, by the way, in this graph to make a dot. Double click that same dot to get rid of it. We'll do that, and I'll put it on trig, and if we play, we just shaped the sound, and this is a push LFO because it's pushing the level up. It's pushing the volume. Now, pump it up. Now, if we drag LFO2 down to a shape like this for like, let's do a bar, put it on trig, and drag that onto the wavetable position, this is a pull LFO because it's pulling the wavetable position through the frames while LFO1 pushes the volume. Let's make this a little bit more dramatic. As you can see, we're getting variations with LFO2 because it's moving wavetable position. So that's how you would shape the sound and get variations. I have to look at my notes real quick because I'm kind of forgetting where I left off. All right, the next thing that we can do is add a filter to add more shape to it. There's a lot of filters. I'm not going to get into all of them. Just know that like the normal filters are pretty much all of the shapes that you can do within the EQ8 when we went over the frequency spectrum. Multi is just two instances of those shapes. So for instance, this is a bandpass. It looks like a big fat hill. And then when you move the frequency around, this frequency knob, it adds a notch filter. So these are two different frequency types that you can have like clash into each other or pull apart to get different variations. And I think that the multi filters are really the best because you're just moving those frequencies around really aggressively, which can get some really interesting changes. So I'm just going to drag LFO1 on here because I want this to push the filter around. I'll put the same LFO on the drive knob to make it louder. So we have that. We can add more variation by turning on oscillator B. And we're actually going to turn the level all the way down for this. I want it quiet. I'm going to also turn down the random on both of these so they always play at the same instance. Now, to get a variation out of this, what we're going to do is go to oscillator A. This bottom middle knob is your modulation knob. If you click FM from B, FM stands for frequency modulation. That's me, not you. That's my alarm. But anyways, when I scroll up on this knob, it's going to kind of blend it with oscillator B. As you can see. Now I'm going to go ahead and change this to something random. And Jenga. So boom, we have that. We can even modulate that knob with our pull LFO. All right, so I'm cool with that. The next thing I'm going to do is actually add some subs. So I'm going to turn on the sub, turn on the level, and we'll make a new LFO for this. So for LFO3, we'll put on there. And I want to do a similar shape to this. And a shortcut to drawing this shape would be go to here, this folder, save shape, call it quarter note womp, if you will, save. And then go back to LFO3, click on that same folder, go to user, load that quarter note womp, boom, there it is. So this ramp is the same exact ramp as this one. So they're perfectly on time. I'm just going to extend this to make the sub longer. I'll just click this knob and bend it, make it a little fatter. And I want the sub to go into this filter as well, so I'm going to turn on that S. And as you can see, it's super crunchy right now. No guarantee that this sounds good later. What else is there to go over? Oh yeah, we can change the BPM to Hertz. So if we deselect BPM, we change it to Hertz. if you want to get different speed variations. And when it's on BPM and triplet, clicking this trip knob or button down here, you turn it to triplet. As you can see. So that's how we can get different speeds and variations out of this. All right, the next thing we're doing is the effects page. So once you're done here, modulating all of your wavetables and parameters, you want to add some flavor to it. And the way that I go about this is I add distortion first, and I use break and back off as always. All right, and then the next thing I do is add a compressor, and the compressor settings that I do is multiband, max gain, max release, max threshold. And as I play the sound, I move back the threshold to a volume level that I like. Let's do that. I'm actually going to put the distortion after, and we'll just put these all at the bottom by clicking and dragging like so. And the next thing I'm going to do is add hyperdimension. I should say this. I really do not like adding any of these width effects. Where's the reverb? When you're synthesizing, for instance, the reverb, the chorus, the hyper, I personally do not like sound designing with these when making dubstep basses, because when you add a lot of width to a sound, if you remember the stereo image video, when you start to distort them and compress that audio field, it gets very noisy very quickly, like especially the reverb. But recently I've been breaking the rules and kind of doing it, so we're just going to do it for here anyways. Do that. The next thing we're going to do is an EQ. And if you remember the front page, how this was a bandpass and a notch filter, you know, it's two filters clashing into each other. I'm going to do the same thing with this EQ. And I'm going to do that by clicking this, which is a notch filter, dragging down the gain, boom, you see it right there. And we can move that frequency around with any one of these LFOs. So I'll do something like this. Not bad, it's actually starting to come to life a little bit, basic dubstep womp. And then I'm gonna add the same peak shape on the low end side. And if I boost this, you can see that peak rising now. And I'm gonna adjust the Q, the sharpness of that curve to make it a little bit more round. And I'm gonna put them at way like the bass region and have them come up. Not bad, dubstep womp. Next thing, let's try a phaser. This just adds like some resonance pulls to your music or sound. Keep like a high mix. I'm actually going to decide to put this pull LFO on the frequency because I know it's going to add some variation. We'll have it go bipolar in both directions. We'll even do the depth knob a little bit too. All right, cool, we like that. Let's do a filter for the last thing. Experiment with combs. Go all the way down the misc, go to combs. This absolutely destroys sound. And right now I'm just turning up the resonance, which will just make the effect ring out more, as you can see. And what else can we do? Yeah, I'll just leave it at that, but we'll go through the rest. Chorus is another width effect. Not bad, let's just go through all of them. Reverb, as you can tell, it's the same thing as the stereo with reverb, pretty much. But you hear this at full mix. Like we lost all of our sub and you can hear a bunch of metallic textures, and like if we continue to post-process this later, it's just gonna get wild. So if you do reverb, do a very small amount. And like you don't want any decay, because if this is 3 seconds long and you turn this up, you get the idea. I hate that. So let's do that. Flanger just kind of adds like some metallic-y textures in a way. A little high pitch, I don't want that. Let's do delay. Let's try taking it off BPM and linking both of them, so when I scroll they both move at the same time, both the left and right channels. Anywhere between like 20 to 31 milliseconds is pretty sweet for delay. You get like some crazy metallic textures. Let's put it down here. think we can modulate this time that we're scrolling with this LFO if I put it on here. All right, I'm not gonna mess with delay. It's not going well with this sound. Sometimes sounds don't work. Don't try and force it if it ain't working. So yeah, this is the sound. Let's start with a little quick before and after. Let me turn all of these off. Massive difference. All back on. So you can see that all of these effects is essentially post-processing, or well, not really post-processing. It's in the synthesizer processing. When you start to add effects to a sound from here, you're processing the sound. You're adding ingredients to it, flavor, you know, you're trying to make it become something. That's why it's called process. Okay, sorry for the jump cut. I keep forgetting what my notes are because I get hung up in sound design and I don't remember at what point in the tutorial I am in. So we're gonna end here. This is just a basic dubstep womp and growl, but remember that once we have LFOs attached to knobs, you're not confined to the shape. We can change it if we want. That's pretty cool. And you can change the speed. And if we go back to quarter note and we drew in a shape like this, that's a lot cooler than it was before. So once you have a sound designed quite basically and you flavored it up with a bunch of effects, the next thing that I would recommend is just duplicating that MIDI track, labeling that first one bass, because like that's your bass concept. And then the second one, I would label version 1, open up that version 1 MIDI. And then here, start ruining everything that you just did. Like, just with intent though, like going through like, okay, I want to change this LFO shape. I might want to bring this back to here, change the speed, things like that. Maybe I want to go into our matrix and add some pitch variation, which we haven't done yet, because remember we did that in our sub video. So let me go ahead and add some pitch variation real quick, and I guarantee you this is probably going to give us something pretty interesting. Let's do like this kind of shape. Yeah, like that's awesome. Let me put it on trig for a bar or envelope for a bar and do this. As you can see, we're starting to get something kind of cool. I actually thought that this was gonna suck in the beginning, and like it is a basic dubstep growl, but like it's coming to life because I'm moving things that were previously set. So don't forget that like you are God in this playground and you can do whatever the hell you want with it. So that's bass sound design in a nutshell. Today we went over wavetables, what's a good and bad wavetable, how to create one, and then we did how to shape a sound through LFOs on the level knob and the filter, and then we added some flavor on the effects page by trying to make the sound come to life. Remember, once you have a basic preset made, duplicate that MIDI track and then just start screwing everything around with intent and adding pitch modulation and things like that to try and get as many variations as you can. The goal really, in my opinion, is to get variations out of your LFO shapes. So that way, all you have to change is the shape of the LFO to create a whole new sound. And if you can understand how to do that, you'll get really good at synthesizing sounds, because you can tell yourself, oh, I know when I change this LFO shape, it's going to completely warp it, and then it's a surprise when you get like some really cool sound. The next thing that we're going to be going over is post-processing, so how to evolve this sound even further, and I'll catch you over in that video. Thanks for watching.